welcome back to another video. You guys, today's video is going to be a reading vlog, and I have a very specific and particular book that I want to dedicate to this vlog, and it's been on my TBR for quite some time. It has taken the world by a storm, and I think you all know it's coming. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I can't wait to read through this one, you guys. I've actually already started it. I'm on page 210 out of 530. So a little over around like 20-25% of the way through this book by this point. And yeah, this book has just like captivated the world. It is a Pulitzer Prize winner. Anthony Doerr's writing is very poetic, very cinematic, and it is now in a Netflix series, so I really think that the writing style will bode well to the TV show adaptation. So I'm really excited to dedicate some very well-deserved quality time with this book to get through it and give you guys my review at the end. So I've already started to read through this book for the vlog, and I'm at 210 pages out of 530. And I just want to give you guys a quick update before I start jumping into reading again. So this is a historical fiction. We are hearing from the perspectives of two different characters, one being Marie. She is a 12-year-old girl who is blind, living with her father in Paris during the Nazi occupation time of World War II. And we're also following the tale of Warner, who is a German orphan boy living kind of like in a coal mining district of Germany. It's more of a poorer area, and we're kind of hearing about what is occurring in both of their lives leading up to the peak of the war, the start of the war. It is the time period of like 1941-ish. And then there's also like a dual timeline, so we're hearing also these characters' perspectives into 1944, which is around the time when the war has concluded. And yeah, it's very interesting. We're not getting a whole lot of inner dialogue or feelings, thoughts, emotions from either character. It's kind of like we're observing as things are happening to these different characters as the war kind of ramps up, and how that really changes their day-to-day lives. And we do hear a little bit about things that they're afraid of, things that they wish for, but overall that's kind of where I'm at in the book. So I have high expectations for this. There is a little bit of a magical realism element in terms of this diamond that is alluded throughout the book. Marie and her father is the caretaker of this museum, and there's this supposed diamond there that is cursed. Whoever is in possession of it will end up living a long life and being healthy, but everyone around them will end up dying. So that is a little bit intriguing. There's not a whole lot else going on with this diamond other than the fact that, you know, the Nazis are trying to hunt down specific artifacts in France and use it for their own. So this diamond has been duplicated and divided up and sent throughout Europe, and there's a specific person who is trying to seek out the real diamond and not the replicas. So I'm kind of curious to see how that plays into the storyline and if that will or will not unite our two characters together. They haven't met yet at this point. So there's a lot to be said about this book, and I will stop talking and get back to reading. Guys, so I really enjoyed reading through All the Light We Cannot See. Since we last had an update, I have basically read around 100 more pages. I'm on page 303 now, and I think last time it was on like 215, 217, somewhere in there. And the writing style of this book is very interesting. It's very much paced like a thriller book. So we get like very short chapters. There's a lot of dialogue in between. I'm trying to think of like how I would describe this. It's almost like you're reading a play or a like watching this through like a TV show kind of thing. Like it doesn't really feel like you're getting like the background information of the minds of the main characters and things like that. So it is a little bit different in terms of writing for a historical fiction book. Typically what we would see is like the character would give like their insights and how they're feeling and their thoughts and things like that. We don't get a whole lot of that in this book. We do get a lot in terms of the overall plot. The plot is always moving forward. It is fast paced just because it is written kind of like that thriller style. Like there's some chapters, I guess you could call them, where it's like 2 or 3 pages, and then there's like 12 sections of the book. So we get that dual timeline of like pre-war, like build up to the war as it's happening, and then also into the future of 1944, I believe, is the future aspect. So yeah, it's very interesting. There is also this element of this diamond that has gone missing from the museum that Marie and her father helped take care of. The father is basically one of the caretakers of the diamond, and yeah, the plot around that is beginning to pick up a little bit more. The Nazis are trying to track this diamond down. They had to split it up so that it wouldn't get into the wrong hands, and there's been a couple duplicates that are sent throughout Europe to hopefully like put off the trail of the Nazis. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how the diamond's gonna come into play this a little bit more. Yeah, the main characters, they have not met yet. Warner, he is basically at this like all boys school training up for the war. He's really gifted with mathematics and understanding how machines work. He has an engineer type of mind and wants to pursue that like in the sciences and in his career. So yeah, his story I would say is a little bit more interesting than Marie's. Marie has her difficulties and shortcomings. She's blind and has a really hard time trusting people and getting around. So that kind of limits her world and what she's like exposed to in terms of like a main character. So it is interesting to kind of get her perspective every now and then. Like I said, we don't really get the full like insights as to like thoughts and feelings. We kind of like are observing these characters as things happen to them. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how this war is affecting Marie as she's growing up through her teenage years. It's not my favorite right now, but I'm hoping that because the pacing is so fast that it'll start to really pick up and we'll be able to kind of get some more clarity as to how this diamond kind of plays into the storyline. I also am really curious to see when our main characters are going to run into each other. So yeah, there's definitely some potential here. I'm well over halfway at this point. I'm on 303 and I think total pages here is like 530. So I'm hoping to kind of get through more of this today and tomorrow. Definitely hoping to get it done by the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, somewhere in there. And yeah, I'm going to keep reading and give you guys some updates along the way. But right now, that's pretty much all I can say at this point, is that the pacing is really good. I like the fact that it's a little bit different writing. It's just pushing me a little bit out of my comfort zone is in terms of like typical historical fictions that I lean into. But yeah, I really wish that there was more character development at this point, but maybe that's to come later. So yeah, let's get back to reading. it's been a couple hours since I've last updated you, but I've been reading through All the Light You Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and yeah, it's getting a little bit more interesting, I'll say that. Our two main characters are kind of going through their own turmoils as the war is going on. We're moving along into the timeline, and it's catching up to the more future part of the story. So if you recall, we left off at section 5, or part 5 is how the book is laid out with all these different parts, and it was around 1941. We are now into 1944, which is considered also like that future time. And yeah, it's starting to pick up a little bit more. There's a lot of inner dialogue that we're now getting from Warner, and kind of seeing like what his perspectives are on the war, what's kind of troubling him. We're getting a lot more insight into like how he's feeling. Marie's character, we're not getting a whole lot of like inner dialogue from her at this point. There's not really too much of like character development on her side. I'll say that Warner, his character is a lot more in depth and a lot more developed, I would say. We're just getting a lot more information from him than we are from Marie. So yeah, so I'm on section 8 now. I have around 120 pages left. I'm on 372 out of 530. So yeah, like around 120-ish pages or so left. I'm gonna go ahead and keep reading, and hopefully we'll finish this either tonight or tomorrow. The writing overall is still in that kind of like cinematic style, where it's very much of a plot-driven book that make it feel, yeah, very like cinematic. It kind of feels like you are reading what would be like a TV show almost. So I could see how the Netflix adaptation would be really compelling for this book. I think it is written in a way that would translate over into a TV show like very well. I'm really curious to see how the diamond's gonna come into play. We're getting little snippets of it here and there as the Nazis are trying to still hunt it down. They haven't found it yet. They are looking for the duplicates, but also the real diamond that is supposedly cursed. I have high expectations for the last 120 pages or so, and hopefully the ending is really good, and we'll be able to finally see how our two characters meet, and yeah, kind of get a little bit more clarity and resolution on that aspect of the book. So I'm gonna get back to reading and kind of give you guys my review at the end, I think. I have officially finished All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and there's a lot to be said about this book. I really had to sit and think on it the last couple days since I finished it, and I had a really hard time giving it a rating just because the writing style and the prose is so different than what I am normally drawn to. So it just made it really hard to give it a good concrete rating, and also the fact that I love historical fiction. So it was a little bit conflicting in my mind of like what to end up giving this, because it is so unique and just different than what I would typically see in a historical fiction novel set during World War II. The overall impression of this book, you guys, I think my expectations going into it were a little bit skewed. I really perceived this book to be more of a romance subplot woven throughout. I really expected to see a lot more inner dialogue of the characters. I was really thinking that we would basically have these two main characters meet each other early on in the story and kind of see how that interaction would like build them up during the war. We didn't get any of that. There really wasn't a romance subplot at all. There wasn't really any inner dialogue that we got to get from our main characters. It's more as though we are observing what is occurring to our main characters as the war is going on, And there's also a little bit of a magical realism element woven throughout this book that I really didn't expect to see coming. There's a little bit of it mentioned on the back cover, which includes kind of the synopsis of the book, which I think is a little bit misleading when I was reading it. We do get these dual perspectives of the main character that's kind of like spelled out on the back of the book, with a little bit about the diamond listed through here. I just didn't expect it to be such a pivotal point of the novel. In terms of the overall ending, right, I wasn't really expecting the ending to skip ahead into the future. Sorry if this is a spoiler for anybody. Basically, like, we get to the very end after the war concludes. Our main characters kind of go their own ways. They've already met each other. Then we skip ahead like 30, 40 years into the future, into the 70s by this point. And I didn't really see that coming. There's really some interesting dialogue that we're now getting between some of the minor characters of the story that interact and meet with one another, the different family members that have been impacted throughout the book that are woven together through our two main characters. The title is interesting. I kind of sat on the name of the title for a little bit of time trying to figure out how it was woven throughout the book, but I think it could be taken literally, but also figuratively. You know, literally, our main character, Marie, she's blind, but however, she does have this like inner spirit of wanting to be very determined to find her father. She and her father get separated. She doesn't hear from him for a very long time, and she holds on to this hope. So I think hope is definitely a main theme throughout this book that we can kind of point to as being the light that we cannot see. There's hope within Warner that there's a future for him outside of this boys' boot camp boarding school that he's in, that he can potentially become an engineer at a later point in time. He thinks about his sister back home in the orphanage quite a lot, and it kind of compels him forward and gives him the strength to get through the really challenging days that he's thrown into. So I think the family relationships give them both hope, but also hope that there's something better after the fact of the war. And we do kind of see that played out into the future aspect at the very end of the book, where some of these minor characters interact with one another due to their relationships with the main characters, Marie and Warner. So yeah, I think the title's very fitting. The writing is so interesting and so beautiful. It's nothing that I've ever really experienced or read of before. And so for that fact, I just had a really hard time giving it a rating. I think I'm going to stick with a 4-star rating, just due to the fact that the writing was just so beautiful. However, I didn't really find this as my favorite historical fiction book that I've read in quite some time. Some of the key things that deterred me from giving it a higher rating was the fact that we don't get a lot of character development. I do love a good plot-driven book, don't get me wrong, but it just didn't seem like we could connect very well with our main characters. I didn't have that emotional tug to them that I would normally have if I could kind of see and understand what's going on in their minds a little bit more. You can definitely tell that he put a lot of care and thought and research into this, which I really appreciate. I would have appreciated a little bit more closure and clarity around the diamond. This cursed diamond ends up kind of going missing at the end of the story. So I didn't really see that coming. There wasn't really a good conclusion to the diamond, I felt like. But overall, it's a very beautiful book. I would highly recommend reading it if you are looking for something different, especially due to the prose being so very unique and just very different than what you would typically see in historical fiction. So yeah, I can't wait to watch the Netflix adaptation. I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out in comparison to the book, if I'm going to like it more than what I've enjoyed so far in the book. So that is the final review for All the Light We Cannot See. You guys, thank you so much for stopping by and watching today's video. If you haven't yet, please comment, like, subscribe to this channel. You guys are so amazing. I love you so much. I hope you have a great day wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!